Beach Party Body. Crashing waves rushed over smooth, wet sand, splashing against Madison's lower legs. She tried to hold still, her dark hair dashing about her face. The sea breeze carried a salt spray that cooled her skin, but the feel of the water at her feet, pulling back into the Pacific Ocean, gave her mild vertigo. Madison's job at the moment was to stand just inside the water's edge, holding a reflector to bounce light at 4 gorgeous models. With the right illumination, Spencer's camera could work its charms. But the mild vertigo caused Madison's arms to shift, losing the correct angle no matter how hard she tried. Her best friend, Spencer, had needed a last-minute assistant for this photo shoot to handle odd jobs, including holding the reflector. "I'm sorry, Spencer. I never thought this would be so hard," Spencer patiently instructed her. "Lift it higher a few inches. Now to the left." Madison tried to follow instructions. "After all the times you've helped me out of a jam, I was hoping to return the favor. You are. I knew I could count on you. And for a beginner, you're doing great." "I'm not great." "You're fine." "Not fine." "Better than nothing." "Okay, I'll take that." Spencer lowered her camera and smiled. "Let's just say my regular assistant has nothing to worry about." She let her camera hang from her neck as she approached Madison, then gently but firmly repositioned Madison's arms. Madison let her arms be moved. "How is she, by the way?" "Any word?" The models standing in the shallows held their pose, their sarongs whipping in the breeze, revealing colorful bathing suits underneath. "Doc says her foot is just fractured, not broken." "Now don't move." Madison held ramrod still, keeping the reflector aimed at the models' faces as Spencer took her shots. Another wave splashed Madison's lower legs, then slowly retreated into the ocean, bringing that mild vertigo again. But she managed to hold still. In the distance behind the models, Madison could see another wave building, slowly rising to a peak. But before it curled over into its musical crash, a surfer on his surfboard flew across it. His sunset-colored trunks stood out against the blue water. Madison admired the way he dominated the wave in a casual flight. The sea breeze now chose to wreak havoc with a model's hair. Mindy's long red tresses blew sideways, slapping repeatedly at Babe's flawless, dark-skinned face. Babe tried to hold still, her eyes and lips closed to the red hair onslaught, giggling through her nose as her tight black spiral curls waved gently in the wind. The other 2 models, Keiko and Kersey, saw it happening and struggled not to smile. Then a salt spray slapped everyone, exploding into a scattershot of cool fat drops. The models screamed and laughed, their sarongs flying with the wind and spray. Spencer captured the moment, shooting several shots in rapid succession. She looked happy, which pleased Madison. Things were finally going well. A young man bearing a bar tray filled with colorful drinks stepped up to the water's edge near the little group, breaking the moment. He wore an apron over black clothing. Clearly, he came from their beachfront hotel. Spencer straightened, her camera still clutched high in her hands, strands of blonde hair waving aimlessly in the breeze. Madison could see surprise in her face. Spencer shared a glance with Madison, but Madison shrugged, not knowing what the man was doing there. The shrug threw off the angle of the reflector. Kersey, one of the models, waved her arms in the air. Woo-hoo! Her light brown hair tossed in the wind as she left the group of models, dancing through shallow water right past Spencer toward the man. Spencer lowered her camera, the lens aiming nowhere. "Kersey? Where are you going?" "We're not done." Her head whipped back to the remaining 3 models. "What is she doing?" Mindy and Babe shrugged, their beachwear sarongs dripping at the hems. Kersey's roommate, Keiko, shoved her long dark hair from her face as the wind changed course. "It's Kersey," she said. "So who knows?" Kersey took cocktails from the bartender's tray, returning to pass them out to the other models, who hesitantly accepted them. Spencer's gaze went from Kersey back to the man with the tray. "What's going on?" "Maybe the hotel sent us drinks." Madison tucked the reflector under her arm. "I'll go talk to him." "Maybe Lon sent them," said Spencer. "But I asked him to bring water bottles, not booze." Lon was the other assistant, here to carry heavy gear and set up equipment. Madison felt sure he wouldn't confuse water bottles with cocktails. She looked across the dry sand at Lon. He had a shaved head and tattooed arms, and he was presently working on the finishing touches of a tall, upright tent, the portable cabana for tomorrow's shoot. He pulled the tent door flap to the side, trying to attach it to a pole to hold it open. As Madison watched him, Kersey approached Lon, giving him a drink and a kiss on the cheek. He looked at the drink in his hand, confused. Perplexed, Madison said, "Whatever it's about, I'll find out. And tell Kersey to get back here." Madison walked through ankle-deep water to the young man from the hotel. "Excuse me, may I help you?" He cocked his head, his brown hair moving slightly in the wind. "I have your drinks, ma'am." Madison knit her brows. "What is this for?" Matter-of-factly, he said, "Cocktails for your party." Kersey excitedly shoved a drink into Madison's hand. Several bright red cherries shone on top of the ice. The arrival of drinks seemed odd. It wasn't even noon yet. But perhaps the management was thanking them for booking the shoot at their hotel. She gestured to the models and told the server, "We're just working here. It's a photo shoot, it's not a real party." "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. "I meant your party, as in the number of people in your group." He picked up the check and a pen from his tray. "I need a signature if you'd be so kind." "Wait." Madison tried to sort this out, but it didn't make sense. "I assumed this was from management. On the house, so to speak?" He looked mildly puzzled. "I was not informed of that, but perhaps there's a memo I haven't seen." "Were you expecting management to send you cocktails?" "Well, no, especially not this early in the morning. But we never ordered. I called it in," said Kersey, bouncing on her toes with a big smile. "Gotta liven up those boring cows I work with." She slapped her hand over her mouth, giggling. "Oops. I meant to say models." "Uh-huh," he said with a nod. "The mystery unfolds. This is Brant." Kersey put her hands on the man's upper arm, her head on his shoulder. "But I call him Mr. Metropolitan. Isn't he the cutest thing?" Brant smiled at her, but when he glanced at Madison, he cleared his throat, then studied his tray. Madison shook her head. She should have known this was Kersey's doing. That girl kept pushing every boundary, stretching every rule, arguing one moment, sweet and playful the next. Kersey winked at him. "Just charge it to my room number." "Very good, ma'am." "Ma'am," Kersey punctuated with a giggle. "He called me ma'am. So adorable." "Kersey, we need you back with the other girls, please," said Madison. "And I'll need to check with Spencer to see how she feels about you girls holding drinks in the photos." Kersey pouted. "Party pooper." She left to rejoin the other models. "I'm happy to wait," said Brant. "There's no one else in the bar at this time in the morning. I can take the glasses back if you need." Madison hurried to Spencer, then filled her in. Spencer grudgingly admitted the colorful drinks looked good on camera. "We may as well use them as props," she said quietly. "But Kersey is really pushing the limits of my patience." She studied the girls in the changing light. "At least I don't need the reflector this time. Just stay nearby." Madison heard a different man's voice call out, "Wow! Looking good, ladies." "Hey there, Kersey." Kersey twiddled her fingers in a cutesy wave of greeting. Madison turned to see the surfer with the sunset-colored trunks. While walking by, he had stopped on the wet sand, holding his surfboard under one arm. His deep tan set off long sun-bleached blonde dreadlocks, dripping water. He was well-muscled with calluses on his knees, and looked older than Madison had expected. Taking them all in, he shook his head. His gaze drifted to include Madison and Spencer. "Damn!" He grabbed his heart, pretending a near faint. "I'm going to have me a heart attack with all this beauty around." He stumbled comically in the sand as a wave hit his feet. The models laughed, his flirting so over the top, they were having fun going along with it. A small wave whapped them from behind and they fell into girly laughter, giving each other playful shoves, their cocktails adding color. Spencer caught it all on camera, then turned, coolly appraising the surfer. Madison took that as her cue to stop him from distracting the girls. She asked, "Weren't you the one surfing out there a little while ago?" She moved closer to him, but stood so he'd have to turn his back to the girls to answer her. "Yeah, that was my daily dawn patrol." "Dawn patrol? Have to get up early to catch the best waves. That was amazing seeing you out there. It was actually fun having this chance to meet him. Watching him on the waves was truly impressive. You must love surfing to be getting up so early every day." "Well, you ladies are a bonus. I don't usually see many people out here so early. But tonight will sure bring 'em out. There'll be a lot of folks cramming together to see the water. And with no moon tonight, it'll look extra cool. What's so special about tonight? Water's gonna be lit. Starts tonight." She stared at him. "You know," he shrugged. "The red tide. Phytoplankton." Madison blinked. He adjusted the surfboard under his arm and squinted at her. "Haven't you ever heard of bioluminescence?" The term sounded vaguely familiar. In fact, yes, she'd heard someone say that word in the hotel lobby this morning. But she'd had no clue what they were referring to. Just then, Brant's voice came from behind Madison. "Move on, Eddie. No one needs your commentary." Eddie's face dropped to deadpan. "I'm just saying hello to the pretty girls." Brant held a hard gaze, the tray hanging at his side. "You said it. Now go." "What's the matter, Brant?" "Afraid I'll mess up your sandbox again." "Yeah, you'd like that. You belong back inside." "Not going." "Then watch yourself." Eddie hefted the surfboard a little higher under his arm. "Next time it'll be your face." "You'd like that, too?" Eddie slowly smiled. "Yeah." He nodded. "I would." He resumed walking down the beach, his long blonde dreadlocks still wet down his back. Madison swung her head to Brant. "What the hell was that about?" He shook his head. "I'm sorry about that. He's a local. We can't legally keep him off the beach, but we try to shoo him away when we can. They call him Crazy Eddie." She watched Eddie walk further and further away down the beach. Where'd that name come from? Brant was watching Eddie, too. Used to be some surf champ or something. Had a head injury. Lives off his winnings now. Madison slapped her forehead. "Oh geez, I forgot. I was supposed to tell you Spencer okayed the drinks." "No problem," said Brant. It was worth the wait just to chase off Crazy Eddie. As he walked away, he held his tray underneath his arm the same way Eddie held his surfboard. Madison knew bad blood when she saw it. She stopped at the cabana where Lon stood with his hands on his hips, giving the tent flap dirty looks. Loose sand clung to his tattooed arms. "Something wrong?" she asked. He shook his shaved head. "Not really. I'm just annoyed the assembly directions didn't match what they actually sent us. I had to figure it out as I went along. You'd never know that. It looks great." Madison saw the water bottles inside the cabana. Outside the cabana, she eyed the drink that Kersey had brought him, tilted in the sand. It looked mostly full. He picked it up, tossing its contents well away from the cabana. The wet red cherries reflected the sun while the liquid quickly disappeared into the sand. "I wish Kersey would take the hint. I'm not into her. I'm trying to be polite, but she comes on strong. Want me to talk to her?" "Nah, you'll be too nice about it." He gave her a wry smile. "I'll tell her to back off. I just don't want Babe getting the wrong idea every time Kersey hangs all over me." Madison's brow lifted. "Babe, huh?" She slowly smiled. "I didn't know. It was cute to see this gruff young tattooed guy get suddenly bashful." "Well, yeah." He shrugged, hiding a smile. "Does she feel the same way?" He thought. "I don't know yet. I think so." He nodded. "I hope so." Spencer trudged up to the cabana, with Mindy, Keiko, and Kersey in tow. Their sarongs looked as tired and worn out as they did. Babe wasn't with them. "That's it for today," said Spencer. "We're still behind schedule, but we'll catch up tomorrow." "Great job, everyone." They all went inside the cabana. Water. Tossing her wet red hair behind her shoulder, Mindy rushed to the water bottles, handing one to Keiko before opening her own. They drank the water as if it were the nectar of the gods, then began flicking water into each other's face in silly fun. Lon looked around. "Where's Babe?" Spencer opened her own water bottle as she looked around. "She was with us a minute ago." Mindy and Keiko stopped playing. "She went back to the water," said Mindy. Kersey tried to give a water bottle to Lon, but turning his back on her, he said, "No thanks." He faced the opening, looking out toward the breaking waves. Madison assumed he was looking for Babe. Kersey giggled and put her hand on his shoulder, rubbing down his arm. "You need to keep up your strength, so." He pushed her hand off. "Stop it." Kersey stared at him, then pouted. "I was just being nice." "I'm not interested, Kersey," he said firmly. "Let it go." With a frosty gaze, she left the cabana. Spencer looked up and around at the cabana, nodding her head in approval. "Lon, you pulled off a miracle. I love it. This will look good tomorrow." "Thanks. All that's left is the volleyball net. I'll put that up in the morning." "Sounds good," said Spencer. "But for now, I'd rather you all went inside the hotel. Make sure you stay out of the sun for the rest of the day. Clean up, get lunch, take a nap, whatever. Just stay out of the sun." "Oh, I wanted to tell you once it gets dark tonight," said Madison. "There's supposed to be a display of glowing water out here. That surfer guy was telling me about it. I'm going to check it out." "I heard something about that," said Spencer. "I'll join you. Maybe I'll see you all out here tonight." As they stepped out of the cabana, Spencer added, "And someone please tell Babe." Lon cut her off. "I'll do it." He jogged out to where Babe stood by the water's edge, watching the waves break. But when Lon reached her, she looked down at the ground. She turned suddenly, hurrying away. Madison could hear Lon's confused voice calling out, "Babe? What is it? Talk to me." "Oh," Madison murmured. Spencer stepped close, quietly asking, "What?" Later, Madison waved her hands at the girls, shooing them away. "Everyone inside the hotel. When you see Kersey, please tell her we want her to stay inside, out of the sun." In her hotel room, Madison put the finishing touches on her fresh makeup. With the prolonged sun exposure sapping her energy, she'd taken a long nap, showered, and was now getting ready to meet Spencer for dinner. The skin on her shoulders felt tight and tender. Her shoulders definitely hadn't looked that pink an hour ago. She leaned closer to the mirror, pushing a shoulder forward to examine the tender skin. Annoyed with herself, she realized she hadn't reapplied the sunscreen as she should have, and it must have worn out before. Loud pounding sounded from the corridor. She looked up. Someone had urgently knocked on a neighboring door. It sounded nearby. The pounding resumed, harder, more determined. She heard a man's voice demand, "Kersey." "What the hell?" Madison hurried to her door. This did not sound good, whatever it was. She threw her door open, looking into the hallway in time to see Keiko open her door as Lon's fist gave it one more pound. "She's not here right now, Lon," said Keiko. She wore a robe, and her long dark hair dripped as if she'd hurried out of the shower. She clutched a towel, rubbing it over her head. "Where is she?" he yelled. "I don't know." Keiko sounded distressed. "I did not hook up with Kersey last night. She was with that asshole on the beach, and she damn well better tell Babe the truth. Or maybe she was so drunk she doesn't even remember who she was with." Keiko winced as he got louder. Madison had enough. "Lon," he jerked around to face her. "Stop yelling at Keiko." He pressed his lips together hard, punched the wall next to the doorframe, then stormed down the hallway. Spencer's eyes rounded as Madison recounted the whole incident from the hallway. But Madison zipped her lip when the hotel waitress showed up to remove their finished dinner plates. It wouldn't do to let word get out that Spencer's team displayed drama in the hallways. As soon as the waitress left, They resumed their discussion. "Wait, wait," said Spencer. "I'm trying to wrap my head around this." She touched her fingertips, as if she were counting. "Kersey said she'd been with Lon, as in slept with him?" Madison shrugged. "That's how I took it, yeah." Spencer touched another fingertip. "He denies it, vehemently. Another finger. And says she may have been too drunk to know who she was with." Madison grimaced. "Not something you'd want on your resume. It's not a good look." Spencer blinked. "And I had no idea about Babe and Lon. How long has that been going on?" "I don't think it had a chance to start. Lon was telling me just this morning he didn't know if Babe felt the same way, but he hoped she did." Spencer rolled her eyes. "So many things have gone wrong before this shoot even began, and now I have a model who acts like she's from a Mean Girl movie." "We shoot again tomorrow, then fly home the next morning," said Madison. "I'll help you get through it the best I can." Spencer sighed. "I'm so glad you're here. You're helping me stay sane." "Wow," said Madison. "I usually have the opposite effect on people." "Weird, huh? Just don't get used to it. I don't know how long I can sustain it." Spencer took a deep breath. "Well, before we go any further, I'd better talk to Lon," and her brows rose, her gaze focusing behind Madison. "Speak of the devil." Lon approached their table. "Madison," he began, looking at the table, the floor, the distance, anywhere, but in her eyes, "I want you to know I apologize to Keiko." He sounded uncomfortable, but resigned. "And I'm apologizing to you, too." He finally lifted his gaze to her face. "I'm sorry I lost it." Madison studied him. Clearly, apologizing was hard for him, probably because he still felt the sting of being falsely accused. "Okay." She nodded. "I accept. And Spencer, you don't have to worry. I'll do the job tomorrow with no other problems." Spencer looked thoughtful. "Let's forget about it. You've been doing a really good job. I'm sure everything will be fine." He pursed his lips, gave a brisk nod, and quickly walked away. "By the way," said Madison, "Kersey charged all those drinks this morning to her room number. She's already way over her daily food and drink allowance." Exasperated, Spencer released a heavy sigh. "I keep hoping she'll straighten up. I still need the cabana and volleyball shots for the client." She took Madison's hands, squeezing hard. "I need her to be professional tomorrow. Can you give her some kind of inspirational pep talk? How about I threaten to beat her with a chain? Less severe, please. A garden hose? No, an old t-shirt? Come on, I can get somewhere if I threaten to beat her with an old t-shirt." Spencer smirked. "I won't ask how you do it." Madison swung a fist through the air. "Yes. Who's the client, by the way?" "Beach Dream Travel. A startup with money. I got lucky." "Luck? Not with your talent," says the gorgeous, talented, unemployed actress across from me. "Sometimes it doesn't matter how good we are. We still have to jump when a decent offer comes along." "Good point." Spencer sighed. "I have one more request. If Kersey pushes me too far tomorrow, I want you to take her place." Madison slumped in her seat. "Please, no. I'd have to shave my armpits." "Take one for the team." Madison cried out, "Oh my God!" Her mouth hanging open, she watched the waves crash in the dark night. The part of the wave that would be the crashing white water in the daylight was now a brightly lit neon blue. "Look at the water, Spencer. I mean, look at the water." Her footprints made iridescent circles, larger than dinner plates, everywhere she stepped. A small wave rushed over Madison's shins, the neon blue light of the water splashing and tumbling around her. As her steps took her further from the water toward drier ground, the glow on the sand diminished until it no longer lit up. She hurried back to the water's edge, where the lights were the most intense. The wetter the sand, the brighter the lights. It felt to her like a fairyland ocean filled with magical lights in shades of blue and green. She'd never known the bioluminescence of plankton could enthrall and fascinate her so. Spencer had her camera, shooting like mad at the wondrous sight. Madison used her cell phone to take photos. "All you have to do is disturb the water, and that makes the lights fire off for a few seconds. Madison bent down to brush her finger through the wet sand. A blue neon light followed everywhere her finger went. She tried writing her name in neon, but the lights in the first letters faded before she could finish writing her whole name. They sat on the wet sand together, worn out from the day, their camera and phone in the tote bag nearby. Laughter and chatter sounded from all around as the beachfront hotel guests strolled by or played in the shallow end of the water. Madison stared at the dark ocean, unable to separate the dark water from the dark sky on the horizon. But anywhere a wave curled over and crashed, a magnificent frothy blue or green light developed, rushing toward the shore before slowly dissipating. Spencer marveled. They said it hasn't happened on this beach in years, and it'll only last for a few days. I'm glad we got to see it together. She playfully bumped Madison's shoulder. Ow! Madison pulled her shoulder away. I got sunburned today. She delicately touched the skin on her shoulder. It seems to be getting more tender by the hour. Oh no! I'll give you the aloe gel I brought. That'll help. And make sure you're slathered in sunscreen tomorrow morning. Laughter nearby pulled their attention. It was Mindy and Keiko, squealing in delight. The surfer was there with them, showing them how to make snow angels in the wet sand. His long blonde dreadlocks looked like dark ropes in the watery sand. In spite of their pretty clothes, Mindy and Keiko had laid down in the wet sand, waving their arms and legs with Eddie to make snow angels. A few feet away, Babe and Lon sat together in the sand. Babe leaned back into Lon's chest, his arms around her waist. Their quiet conversation erupted into laughter at the electric blue snow angels that Keiko and Mindy made. Madison sighed happily. Looks like Lon worked it out with Babe. As if she'd heard her name mentioned, Babe's head turned toward Madison. Then she stood, walking to where Madison and Spencer sat in the sand. Have you decided on the shoot time tomorrow? Asked Babe. I know I said it might be at a later time, said Spencer, but I'm afraid it'll be 6 a.m. again. We're behind schedule. That's fine with me. I'm a total morning person, said Babe. Everyone teased me last night for leaving the party so early. Madison smiled. What did you do last night? Oh, we all wandered out here after dark. Turned into a beach party where everyone's dancing in the sand. But the only music was from Mindy's tiny cell phone. So, there we were, she laughed, all crowded around the phone, trying to dance to music we could barely hear. Madison chuckled. We must have looked ridiculous, but it was so much fun. Babe's expression turned shy. That's how Lon and I got to talking. As Babe returned to sitting with Lon, Spencer watched the snow angel activity, then leaned in, quietly asking, Hey, what about the surfer guy over here? Didn't you say they call him Crazy Eddie? Yeah, that's what Brant said. Who's Brant? The bartender guy. Kersey introduced me to him when he brought the drinks this morning. Madison hunched her shoulders. Honestly, I was a little uncomfortable with the way she flirted with him, hands all over his arms. She even gave him a nickname, calls him Mr. Metropolitan. Madison shook her head. I mean, we're here on business. It wasn't appropriate, but he didn't seem to mind. Huh, said Spencer. She doesn't waste any time. And didn't I hear the surfer say, Hey there, Kersey, when he walked by this morning? Yup, he sure did. I've been thinking about that. I'm wondering if that's who Kersey was really with last night, but she told Babe she was with Lon. But she'd barely know him. And he has a rep for being crazy. It worries me. Spencer cocked her head, watching Mindy and Keiko with Eddie. Should we chase him away? I'm not sure we can. Brant said they can't legally chase him off the beach. But I'll tell you one thing. Those two did not like each other. Who? Crazy Eddie and Brant. Yeah. Eddie said Brant belonged inside, but Brant said he wasn't going. Then Eddie threatened him, saying, Next time it'll be your face. Whoa! Spencer looked concerned as Eddie demonstrated another glowing snow angel. I take it they had a bad encounter at some point. Madison watched as the girls laughingly messed up each other's snow angels, so they'd have to start over. Eddie's just showing them how to make the wet sand light up. Seems harmless enough. I'm actually glad the girls are having fun. They needed a break. We're probably worried over nothing. Madison agreed. How about we just keep an eye on them? At that moment, Kersey stumbled into view, weaving unsteadily toward the water. What the hell is this? She demanded to know, her words slurred. Madison stared in disbelief. Are you kidding me? What? Asked Spencer. Madison nodded her chin in Kersey's direction. She sounds hammered. Kersey steadied herself, swaying but standing upright. I've never seen water like that. She suddenly threw her arms out wide. I love it. She waded into the water, going deeper and deeper. Madison's eyes widened. What is she doing? No. Madison jumped up from the sand, running into the dark surf. Kersey was already hip-deep in the water and still going, leaving an iridescent trail behind her. Splashing through the waves as fast as she could, Madison tried to catch up. The water hit her waist level. She paddled with her arms to help herself move forward, faster. Kersey, that's far enough, she cried. A dark wave headed for them rose higher, then curled overhead. The wild crash of neon water slammed into them, throwing Kersey's body into Madison. Madison fumbled an arm around Kersey's waist and held on as they went under in the rush and tumble of the surging wave. She held her breath, her body thrown and spun, losing the sense of where gravity was, wondering how long the tide would hold them under. But the longer they tumbled, the closer to shore they were thrown. When the tumbling suddenly stopped, Madison found herself in knee-deep water. She and Kersey rose to their feet, sputtering salt water as the tide rushed back into the ocean. Woot! Kersey whooped, punching her fist into the air. What a ride! Still shaken, Madison parted the sopping wet curtain of dark hair from her face, wiping the water from her eyes as best she could. What the hell were you thinking, Kersey? She grabbed Kersey's hand, leading her out of the water. Why didn't you tell me everyone was out here having fun? Kersey demanded, her feet kicking the shallow water. Why didn't anybody tell me? You're all bitches. Oh, come on. It wasn't intentional. You left the cabana before I made the announcement. If I hadn't been cut off at the bar, I wouldn't have wandered out here. I wouldn't have seen the pretty lights. I would have missed it. You all hate me. Madison stopped, putting her hands on her hips. She said, Did you just say the bar cut you off? Yeah, that metro jerk. His boss was there, so he suddenly gets all judgy on me, pretending I've gone too far. What a hypocrite. You have no business drinking so much that the bar has to cut you off. You're supposed to be here professionally. Your actions reflect on Spencer and everyone else. They should fire that guy, and Kersey's eyes widened. Eddie? She ran toward Eddie and the girls on the sand. Eddie caught her as she threw her arms around him. While Eddie taught Kersey how to make neon snow angels, Madison returned to Spencer. I hate babysitting drunks, she said, wringing water out of her hair. I hate taking pictures of them. As pretty as she is, at this rate she's going to look like hell in the morning. If we can get her to go to bed right now, she could still look okay tomorrow. Besides, it's getting late, said Madison. We have the perfect excuse to send everyone to their rooms to get some sleep. That way we don't have to play bodyguard with drunks, crazy surfers, and drama in general. Sounds brilliant. I'll make the announcement. Spencer strode over to the group playing in the sand. Within moments, Babe and Lon took off for the hotel. Keiko and Mindy waved goodbye to Eddie, joining Madison and Spencer as they trooped into the hotel, carrying their towels and sandals. Madison retrieved her cell phone from Spencer's tote bag. Then she walked backwards, watching Kersey take her time saying goodbye to Eddie. It became apparent that Kersey wasn't actually coming with them. Is she coming? Asked Spencer. Nope, she sighed. You guys go on. I'll handle it. Spencer sounded tired. You've already run into the ocean for her. Hey, this is serious. If she doesn't get her act together, I may have to shave my armpits. Spencer smirked. The world will come to an end. Not the world. Just my plan to not have to shave for a week. She gave Spencer a hug. Go sleep. I've got this. Madison headed back toward where Kersey and Eddie stood in the sand, hugging. Kersey, she yelled. Kersey, and Eddie jerked, breaking their hug. Kersey rolled her eyes with a dramatic slump of her shoulders when she saw it was Madison. As Eddie stood by, Kersey crossed her arms defiantly and strode toward Madison. Madison met her halfway. You heard Spencer ask all of you to please go get some rest. What's it to you? Said Kersey, her expression sour. You're just an assistant. Go assist something. Madison fought not to rise to the bait. I'm assisting you right now. If you drink lots of water to counteract some of the alcohol and get lots of sleep, you'll still have a chance to look good in the shoot tomorrow. Looking good in the photos is why you've been hired. Madison's gaze held Kersey's, pleading with her. Come on, Kersey. You can do this. Oh my God. Kersey snickered. What is your problem? Madison had little patience left. You're my problem. We need you to act professionally. Yes, Mommy. Kersey laughed mockingly. Madison stared hard at the immature woman before her. You know what? Let's skip the pep talk. Let's get straight to the consequences. Oh, I am so scared. Madison felt the cell phone in her hand. If you like your agent, you should be. She poked a few buttons on the screen. What? Now you're going to call my agent and lie to her. I won't have to say a thing. Madison held up her cell phone and took a quick photo of Kersey. A picture says 1,000 words. That got Kersey's attention. Wake. What are you doing? Madison used her calm voice. No drinks, no drama, just good old-fashioned sleep. Oh, and don't forget about drinking water. Chug it. What are you blackmailing me? How do you think your agent will react to your drunk face? Worse, how do you think she'll react to your early morning face? Because so help me, if you show up looking hungover, I sure as hell will send photos to her. Kersey was silent. We need you looking your best, and out here on the sand by 6 a.m. like the rest of us. Got it? Fine. Kersey used both hands to flip her hair behind her shoulders. Oh, don't you flip your hair at me. Kersey huffed. Calm down. I'm going. As Kersey stormed back to the hotel, Crazy Eddie called to her. I'll see you later. Kersey called over her shoulder. Count on it. Madison faced the surfer. Did you two make plans to meet up out here? He shrugged. She's an adult. She can make her own decisions. She's an employed adult. Not everyone can live on their winnings. His stony face gave way to a half-smile. Not everyone has winnings big enough. He turned and left, leaving neon circles fading in his wake as the darkness swallowed him along the water's edge. Hopefully going home. Madison sat up in bed, checking the time. 3 a.m. She groaned. Damn sunburn woke her. All she did was turn over in her sleep, and the skin on her shoulders sent a pain message to her brain, loud enough to wake her. She yawned, swinging her feet to the floor. Where had she put that aloe gel Spencer gave her? She sleepily stumbled into her bathroom, found the aloe gel on the counter, and poured some into her palm. As she carefully spread it all over each shoulder, she thought about her confrontation with Kersey earlier this evening. She was glad she'd walked Kersey all the way to her room. Kersey's roommate, Keiko, had to open the door for them when Kersey couldn't find her key card. Madison had said goodnight to them and left. Done with the aloe gel, she turned the bathroom light off to return to bed, but the gel was still wet on her shoulders. She didn't want a chance that it might rub into her sheets, so she tried to find something to do while it dried. Looking out the sliding glass door of her 4th-story balcony, she saw the dark water with its occasional lovely color burst when waves broke. Perfect. The warm summer air would help the aloe gel dry faster. She slid the glass door open, then stepped outside onto the balcony. She bent slightly, resting her forearms on the wide railing, looking down at the black beach. The rhythmic sound of the waters gently rushing to shore felt like a lullaby, shushing the world to sleep. In the darkness, she could not see the line between water and sand unless a wave broke, causing the phytoplankton to light up in the breaking water. Her eyes followed the blue fluorescence of a crashing wave as the water rushed toward the shore, the iridescent foam slowly dissipating as it spread thinly across the wet sand. She looked to the drier sands, to the spot where the cabana should be. It was too dark to see it distinctly. Then faint lights caught her eye. She saw small circles of gentle illumination. One faint circle in front of the other slowly made their way toward the water. As the circles got closer to the water, the illumination grew a little brighter. She smiled, remembering how her footprints made circles of light the size of dinner plates everywhere she stepped in the wettest sand. Someone must be walking on the beach, enjoying the empty expanse. Except she peered closer. What was that smear of light following them? A fluorescent line, like a wide groove, pursued the round circles. The groove was about the width of a surfboard. "Eddie," she whispered. She'd heard surfers never drag their boards. He must be feeling lazy, dragging his surfboard to the water instead of carrying it. But 3 a.m. seemed early for what he'd referred to as his dawn patrol. And with no moonlight, how safe was it to surf in the dark waters? She shook her head. They did call him Crazy Eddie after all. She watched the fluorescent lights go all the way into the water, creating a muddled light as the waters were disturbed with tiny splashing. The soft illumination gently died as the water stilled. She yawned, wanting to go back to sleep. But just then, the circles returned from the water, crossing to drier sands where they gradually disappeared. Madison wondered if Eddie had managed to lose his surfboard in the darkness, because the fluorescent groove was gone. She touched her shoulders to check the aloe gel. It was dry enough to return to bed. Madison collected the paper coffee cups from the models, taking the cups into the cabana, where she added them to a paper trash bag. The small table they'd brought inside the cabana held the last fresh coffee cup, the one waiting for Kersey. And, of course, she was late again. Madison gazed at the lone coffee cup, wondering how Spencer would handle the situation. Through the open flap, movement caught her eye. Down by the water's edge, Eddie passed by, his long blonde dreadlocks dripping water again. He carried his surfboard under his arm, just like yesterday. He must have just finished his dawn patrol. Remembering Eddie's words last night about seeing Kersey later, Madison hoped Kersey did not keep whatever date they had arranged. Or maybe she had, and that was why she was so late this morning. Probably overslept. Spencer stormed inside the cabana, fighting with the back of her camera, fiddling with the battery. "I just recharged this thing last night. Why can't it hold a lousy charge? Let me get you another battery." Madison pulled Spencer's leather gear bag up onto the table to dig around for the spare batteries. But the jostling accidentally knocked over the paper trash bag, and the last fresh coffee went with it. Oh! She tried to grab the cup in time, but it spilled onto the sand. Damn it! Sorry for making a mess. She squatted to gather the trash, picking up coffee cup lids, wadded napkins, and stir sticks, shoving them all back into the paper bag. The spilled coffee made a brown wet sand puddle that she tried to cover with drier sand. As she pushed the sand around, something orange caught her eye. She pulled it from the sand. It looked like half of an orange pill capsule. There was nothing in it except a little sand, and she vaguely wondered where the other half was. "Your mess is so small of a problem, it's cute," said Spencer. "It may be the last day, but things are still going wrong. Did you see the portable volleyball net?" "No, why? Is there a problem?" Madison stood, wadding the top of the trash bag so it couldn't spill again. "It was a big tangled ball when we opened the box this morning. Unbelievable. Lon's working on it now." Madison finally handed Spencer a fresh battery, then followed her out of the cabana. "I hate to add to the trouble, but Kersey still hasn't checked in." She followed Spencer around the corner of the cabana to where the models waited in a little group. "Keiko?" Spencer waved her over. Was Kersey close to being ready when you left your room? Keiko shook her head, her long dark hair shining like silk. I haven't seen her this morning. I had to stay with Mindy and Babe last night. What? Madison blinked. What do you mean you had to stay with Mindy and... Lon stepped up. Spencer, sorry to interrupt. I got the volleyball net untangled, but it's full of holes. Do you still want it set up? Holes? Spencer's eyes widened. They sent us one with holes? Spencer stared from Lon to the net he'd spread out on the sand nearby. You've got to be kidding me. She stormed over to the holy net, inspecting it. Madison turned back to Keiko. Tell me what happened. Kersey was arguing on the phone with room service, trying to get more drinks brought up. Keiko shook her head. I was sure I wouldn't get any sleep with her in the room. Why didn't you call my cell and tell me what was going on? I didn't want any drama. I just wanted sleep. So I stuffed a few things in my purse, like my PJs, and got out of there. Did you tell her where you were going? No, I didn't want another fight with her. She probably thought I was coming back. I just hurried out while she was in a good mood. Good mood? I thought you said she was arguing on the phone. Well, yeah. She started out furious. But just before I left, she was sort of laughing. Keiko rolled her eyes. It was that cutesy giggle she likes to do around men. I heard her say, I can bring that, and I'm totally up for that, or something. Keiko shrugged. I hurried out. I went to Babe and Mindy's room and asked if I could bunk with them. Madison nodded. Sounds like you did the smart thing. All my things were still in the room at that point, so I had to go back this morning to get ready for the shoot, said Keiko. She was already gone. I assumed I would see her out here. Is it possible she got in so late this morning you just missed her? I guess. And if she did, she saw my things are gone. I moved the rest of my stuff into Mindy and Babe's room this morning before coming down here. I'm staying with them again tonight. As if to prove a point, she gave Madison her room key card, saying, You can have this. I won't need it anymore. Madison shook her head. I don't know what to do with her. Her behavior is, well, Keiko's response was blunt. She has a problem. Remember when Lon was yelling in the hallway about Kersey not remembering who she was with the night before? I sure do. He was right. She really didn't remember. I had to tell her what she did. Are you referring to the party, when you were all dancing to Mindy's cell phone? Keiko blinked, seeming surprised that Madison knew about the impromptu party. That party started out fun. I'd even say, cute. But then Kersey's drinks kept arriving. She kept going. Next thing she's all over the men. She shook her head. She likes to party beyond anything I'm comfortable with. I'm done. As Keiko left, Spencer returned from mourning over the volleyball net. She looked irritated, but calm. Lon's repairing the more obvious holes in the volleyball net, so we have some unexpected time on our hands. Madison held silent, not wanting to tell her what she just found out from Keiko. Spencer studied her. Don't tell me? She closed her eyes tightly. It's Kersey, isn't it? Madison nodded. With her eyes still closed, Spencer said, Are you nodding? If you are, I can't hear you nodding. Madison nodded again. Spencer opened one eye. You're messing with me? Yeah. Madison smiled sadly. Just trying to lighten the mood? Good news will lighten my mood. Sorry I got nothing. Except, well, I shaved my armpits. I'll take it. You're hired. I guess I'll go slap some makeup on. Well, you have all the time in the world because everything is so screwed up I can't shoot until we fix multiple problems. She rubbed her temples. I'm going to stay here and fight with my camera batteries. Lon will fight with the volleyball net. And you can go fix up. Be back here in an hour. I'm on it. After she got herself ready for the camera, Madison stood in the hotel bar. She had extra time and lots of questions. Can I talk to you for a minute? Brant finished drying a glass, setting it down on the bar top. Sure. Can I get you anything? No thanks, I just wanted to ask if you've seen Kersey this morning. One of your models? I'm sorry, I just assumed you knew her name. She spent so much time with you at the bar last night. Ah, the one I had to cut off. Madison sighed. That's the one. She's also the one who called in all those cocktails early yesterday morning. She nodded. Afraid so. I remember because of the cherries. Every drink I hand her always has to have at least 5 long-stem cherries in it. Madison smiled wryly. I've seen that. She must really love them. I haven't seen her since last night. He smiled apologetically. I don't think she likes me now. She'd had so much to drink, I had to cut her off. It's hotel policy for the bartender to make a judgment call on things like that. Madison chuckled. She said you cut her off because your boss was here. He rolled his eyes, sharing a laugh with her. Especially because he was here. I couldn't serve her in her condition, in front of my boss. I'm still on probation and could lose my job if I made exceptions for her. I tried to explain it to her. I completely understand. After a thought, Madison asked, would it be all right for me to use the bar phone over there? I'd like to call room service. I just want to know if she was okay when they last saw her. No problem. He lifted the old-style phone with its long cord from the back of the bar, setting it on the counter in front of Madison. She pressed the room service button and made her inquiry. After a brief chat, she hung up, disappointed. I guess she never completed the order. They said there's no record of sending anything to her room. The bartender tilted his head. Well, why did you think she'd called room service? Because she was arguing about getting more drinks. Wouldn't that be room service? It would, he nodded. Any food or beverage delivered to the rooms has to go through room service. The kitchen sends me drink orders, I make the drinks, they pick them up to deliver to the room number on the order. Could we look at the checks from last night? Sure. See for yourself. He handed her a stack of white paper slips. Madison looked at every single one. Nothing for Kersey's room. This is frustrating. After arguing with room service, she suddenly got happy, saying she was up for that. Up for what? That's what I want to know. She got off the bar stool, taking a few steps heading out of the lounge, then stopped. Brant, have you ever seen Crazy Eddie surfing at night? Eddie? He shook his head. Can't say that I have. Why do you ask? It's probably nothing, but I saw someone out there late last night. It was dark. At first, I thought Eddie was out there to surf, but now I wonder if that's where he and Kersey agreed to meet. He shrugged. If she was with Crazy Eddie, anything is possible. Madison knocked on Kersey's door, hoping she was back in her room. No answer. Kersey's behavior was increasingly erratic, unafraid of consequences, and it made Madison nervous. She knocked again, louder. Still no answer. Maybe she was in there sleeping it off. Then a frightening thought occurred to Madison. What if she's unconscious and needs help? Using the keycard Keiko gave her, she let herself in. No one was in the room. If Keiko moved all of her own things out of here, as she'd said, that meant anything left in the room was Kersey's. Madison looked around, seeing plenty of items left here and there. Okay, so Kersey hadn't checked out of the hotel. The closet door was open, showing hanging clothing and shoes on the floor underneath. The sandy beach sarong from yesterday's shoot lay rumpled in the corner. She wandered into the bathroom, seeing makeup and hair products scattered on the counter. And something else. The corner of a small plastic baggie stuck out of a makeup bag. Madison used that type of baggie to hold her vitamins when she traveled. But these weren't vitamins. These were orange-colored capsules. Tiny print on the capsules read, Adderall. Madison sighed, feeling guilty for snooping. She told herself Kersey probably had a prescription for the pills, and she carried them in plastic baggies the same way Madison carried her vitamins. No one ever questioned whether or not Madison had a prescription for her vitamins. But then again, no one ever used vitamins as a recreational drug like Adderall. The bigger issue remained. Where was Kersey? Madison had personally escorted Kersey here to her room last night. Keiko said Kersey was on the phone when Keiko left to go stay with Babe and Mindy. After that, Kersey could have gone anywhere. Madison left the room and hurried down to the beach to take Kersey's place in the chute. The volleyball flew in Madison's direction. She tried to hit it, but connected painfully on her thumb. The ball rolled down the wet sand into the water, but the wave rushing to shore brought the ball with it. She snatched the ball and brought it back. The other models shouted encouragement as she returned, but she knew her performance sucked. "Sorry, Spencer," she called. "I was never good at this." Spencer lowered her camera, coming closer to the volleyball net. "I don't need any of you to be good at volleyball," she laughed. "I just need some beach party bodies to play in the sand." She played back some shots in her electronic viewfinder. "It's looking fantastic." She fiddled with her camera's menu as she said, "Let's have Madison serve it this time. I want you all to react as if she's just hit the most magnificent serve you've ever seen." "Oh, I get it. You want fantasy now," said Madison. Spencer laughed, but didn't correct her. Madison served the ball, surprising herself that it flew pretty decently. Excited, she turned to Spencer, shouting, "I did it." The ball hit her in the head. She hadn't paid attention for just a second, and that's all it took. As she staggered to regain her balance, Babe ran to her. "Are you okay?" She suppressed her laughter, a hand on her mouth. "I'm fine, but my pride is in cardiac arrest." The ball flew over the wet sand, back into the water again. "I'll get it," cried Mindy. Her long red hair bounced as she ran, trying to grab the ball in the frothy water. Madison put her hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath, scolding herself for not paying attention. That's when she heard Mindy scream. All heads snapped toward Mindy. She was staring at something, her hands on her mouth, her feet quickly backing away from the water. Next to the volleyball bobbing in the water, Kersey's body washed up on the shore. All was quiet at the table in the lounge. A paper happy hour menu, rumpled and stained, fell to the floor. Soft music filtered in through overhead speakers as Madison gazed at all the empty glasses still sitting on their table. Every glass had cherries or cherry stems, in memory of Kersey. Everyone involved with Spencer's shoot had gathered this evening, taking up the private table in the back corner. Still in shock, they tried to understand how a young life could so easily be lost. But tomorrow they would fly home, and the hour was late. Everyone except Madison and Spencer left for their rooms. The police were long gone, the body removed, and the reason for this tragedy seemed obvious. Kersey went swimming when she was too drunk again. But this time there was no one to stop her, and she drowned. Open and shut case. "There's nothing more you could have done, Madison." Spencer held Madison's hand, trying to get her point across. "But it doesn't make sense." Haunted by something, Madison kept going over it in her mind. Why was there an orange capsule, or rather, half of a capsule in the cabana? I mean, I saw the Adderall in her room, but half a capsule? That means it was opened, and the contents spilled out. "That's how some drug users do it," said Spencer. "They empty the capsules into a cocktail and drink it. It hits them faster and harder that way." But why in the cabana? She had them in her room. She could have taken it any time. She wadded a napkin in her fist. And all that fuss about Kersey saying she was with Lon that first night, but both Lon and Keiko said she was too drunk to remember what happened. Have you noticed, no one has told us exactly what did happen? In fact, no one except Babe ever acknowledged the beach party that happened that first night. I mentioned it to Keiko, and she acted surprised that I knew about it. It sounded harmless, Spencer shrugged. Dancing in the sand. Why would they keep it to themselves? Remember when Babe told us she's a morning person, and they teased her for leaving early? That means whatever happened after Babe left. But when I asked Keiko about it, all she would say was that Kersey kept drinking, and that she was all over the men. "Man or men's?" She said men. "Good catch," said Madison. There had to be another man there besides Lon. Maybe that's when Crazy Eddie entered the picture. Because the next morning he walked by and knew Kersey's name. That's what I'm thinking. But why the secrecy? He boldly said hello to everyone. Spencer's phone sounded an alert. She picked it up, scanning the message. Kersey's agent says she personally knows Kersey's family. She'll be the one to break the news to them. Can you imagine getting news like that? Madison shook her head, her eyes closed. Another alert sounded from Spencer's phone. It's the client. I sent them the news about the drowning. They agree with my plan to remove Kersey from the shots. A heavy sigh escaped her. It'd be too heartbreaking not to. The bartender, Brandt, came to their table with a tray. Quietly he said, "I'll clear this away for you." He put the glasses on his tray, shuffling to make room. "Are you okay?" Madison nodded, then closed her eyes and shook her head no. He gave her a sad smile. "Can I get you anything else?" A new brain. Madison leaned back in her seat. Mine's worn out from trying to make sense of this. He shook his head. You know, she talked about swimming in the beautiful lights. I just assumed she'd wait until she was sober. He fit one last glass on the tray, then left. It is beautiful, she barely mumbled to herself. Kersey marched right into the water, and I had to stop her, because it finally hit her. She shut up as her mind calculated, everything thrown into a new light. Her certainty warring with her doubt. She didn't want to say anything until she knew, for sure. Murder was not a thing to take lightly. She had to find out, and she knew where to look. Spencer was busy trying to pick up the pieces and salvage what she could of this job. Madison's heart went out to her. But for now it was convenient that Spencer was distracted. "Can I leave you here for a few minutes?" "Sure." Spencer stared hard at her phone while she typed. "I'll be here a while." Madison slipped out of her chair, then hurried through the lounge, to the exit, to the sand outside. The warm air caressed her as she quickly strode across the dark beach, breaking into a run. In the dark she rushed inside the cabana, pulled out her cell phone, and hit the flashlight button. Her cell phone threw bright light onto the sand. Madison dropped to her knees where she'd spilled the coffee earlier, where she'd found the orange half capsule. Holding the flashlight phone with one hand, she sifted through the sand with the other. She found another orange half. Then 5 more, then 2 more, but it was something else she sought. There it was. Cherry stems. At least a dozen or more cherry stems mingled with Adderall capsule halves in the sand. "Why are you out here?" A man's voice from the opening flap of the cabana made Madison whirl around. She cursed herself for acting thoughtlessly. Of course Brandt saw her rush out of the bar and followed her outside. How could she be so stupid? His gaze fell to Madison's light in the sand. "The cherry stems?" After a clipped laugh, he said, "I never thought of that. She never called room service, did she? That was you on the bar phone, arguing with her that the bar was closed. You didn't agree to sneak all those drinks to her until she offered to bring Adderall. But when she overdosed, you had a problem on your hands. You had to choose between running for help or keeping your job. Oh, believe me, the choice was easy. She was about to ruin my life. So you killed her? Give me a break. She was already killing herself. I just helped her get on with it. I'm not going back inside because of her. Are you crazy?" Madison stared at him. Eddie said, "You belong back inside," and you answered, "Not going." "What?" She blinked at the implication. "You mean prison?" "Metropolitan prison. It's no secret. I even told you I was still on probation." She could hardly breathe. "I thought you meant your job probation." He shook his head. "You couldn't just fly home and forget about it. It's like you're obsessed. Why did you have to come out here?" "Because you lied. She never told you she wanted to swim in the lights. Out here on the beach, she said if you hadn't cut her off at the bar, she wouldn't have wandered out here. She was angry that no one told her about the lights." He snickered. "She knows about them now." Madison threw sand in his face, then sprang forward. She dropped her cell phone in the sand, plunging the tent into darkness. She got in a lucky shot, landing one really good punch to his throat. With his brief shock, she was able to scramble past him and run out the opening of the cabana. But he tackled her from behind. With one arm around her waist, his other hand covering her mouth, he cut her scream off so quickly. She doubted anyone could have heard the short yelp over the crash of the waves. She struggled as he manhandled her down to the water's edge, the wind slapping sea spray into them both. Dinner plate-sized circles of illumination lit their footsteps in the wet sand. But the circles she'd seen from her balcony were accompanied by a wide neon groove. She knew now that groove was not made by any surfboard. It was Kersey's body, being dragged to the water. She fought and scratched, hoping at the very least he'd have a hard time explaining where all the deep gouges came from. The iridescent tide seemed so wrong in this context. It wasn't supposed to be beautiful when you were fighting for your life. She saw the lovely blue muddle of the water as he dragged her in, deeper into the tide. Knowing this was what she had witnessed in the middle of the night when Brant murdered Kersey. And as he plunged Madison's head into the water, she wondered how long she could hold her breath while the waters lit up around her. But just as suddenly as he'd plunged her under, she felt movement near her legs in the water, and Brant's hands came off her. Her feet found the sand at the bottom, and she jerked upright, water running down her face. It was Crazy Eddie. He was smashing his fist repeatedly into Brant's face. With a loud growl, Crazy Eddie cried, "I told you next time it'll be your face." In the early morning, multiple suitcases sat together in front of the hotel. They all had a flight to catch. Taxis came and went, but Spencer's group wanted to travel together in a van that would take all of them to the airport. The trauma of the last 24 hours made them want to stay close to each other. Lon and Babe stood off to the side, their carry-on items at their feet. They were in deep discussion about staying in touch. They'd said earlier they had decided to try a long-distance relationship until they could work out a way to live near each other. Mindy and Keiko looked through the photos Spencer showed them as she held out her camera's electronic viewfinder. These were the dozens of photos Spencer took of the iridescent waters and the neon snow angels Mindy and Keiko made while their infectious laughter filled the air. "Wow," said Keiko. "These are amazing. Ooh, look at this one." Mindy's eyes grew wide. "That's my favorite." Madison marveled at how lovely the photos were. "And you said the client likes them?" "They love them." Spencer beamed. "They want the whole batch. They're considering the contract fulfilled after all. And these shots are giving them ideas for their next advertising campaign." Keiko nodded. "I can see why." Her eyes lifted to Spencer's face. "I want you to know I loved working with you and Madison." "Me too," said Mindy. "I'm so sorry for what happened to Kersey, but I hope you both know you did all you could. Her problems had nothing to do with you." They were all surprised to see Eddie step up at that moment. "I'll second that," he said. "That poor girl had some problems that I'd like to think she would have overcome if she'd had the chance." "Oh, Eddie." Spencer threw her arms around Eddie. "Thank you, oh my God. Thank you for saving Madison. I'd be lost without my bestie." Madison smirked. "You might have less trouble to deal with." "Just saying. Worth the madness. Every minute of it." Keiko hugged Eddie next. "Thank you for doing the right thing at the party that night. I was so uncomfortable I was just going to leave, but you stepped in and stopped it." "Speaking of that party," said Madison, "what exactly happened that night?" Mindy pushed her red hair behind one shoulder. "Kersey got all hot and heavy on Brant, and he went along with it with enthusiasm. I was wishing they'd get a room. When her clothes started coming off, Eddie stepped in and shut it down hard. He grabbed Brant, threw him down on the sand, and walked Kersey into the hotel," Keiko said. "Then Brant told the rest of us he was worried what his boss would do if he found out. We didn't want him to lose his job because Kersey was taking her clothes off, so we all agreed not to say anything." "It was hard to know," said Mindy, "whether Kersey knew what she was doing. She walked the edges that way. But the next day her memory was messed up. That's when we knew Eddie's instinct to step in was right." Madison shook her head. "You must have known about Brant." Eddie sighed. "I did. But the hotel has always had a second chances program for guys trying to start their life over. It's helped a lot of people." Now Brant has marred the good reputation of the program. Well, the police have Brant now, said Spencer. He was still wet when they led him away in cuffs. She smirked. But he'll be dry long before his face heals. Eddie smiled. Happy to oblige. It all makes sense now, said Madison. But I have one last question. Eddie, how did you happen to be there when Brant pulled me into the water? That night you asked me if Kersey and me made plans to meet up? He shrugged. We did. But I told her I wanted to wait till the next night, same spot, extra points if she's sober. I didn't know if she could do it, but I wanted to give her a chance. But when I arrived to meet up with Kersey, I saw you trying to fight off Brant. Madison released one final heavy sigh as she hugged Eddie. Thank you. Because of you, the people who love me back home will get to see me again. And that's a wonderful thing. People who love you. He patted her back maybe a little too long, trying to break out of the melancholy moment. You ever want to learn how to surf, you come back here. Bring some of those folks of yours. I'd love that. The van pulled up and the porters loaded luggage into the back while everyone climbed inside the van, finally heading to the airport. As the van pulled away from the hotel, Madison watched Eddie waving goodbye. She pictured him out there on the water, dominating the waves, his sun-bleached blonde dreadlocks flying in the wind. Once his image disappeared, she watched the ocean along the side of the road until the road swerved away, and the ocean turned to a slim blue line in the distance, fading out.